Hey gorgeous, on to the next part now. Again, so, because I've been watching you for years. Sure you have, I said, waiting for the joke. None came. It was getting late and I had a lot to think about. I felt burdened by a new obligation, one I wasn't sure I could fulfill. Socrates came in, wiped his hand and filled his mug with spring water. As he sipped slowly, I said, "I've got to go now, Soc. It's late and I have a lot of important schoolwork to do." Socrates remained quietly seated as I stood and put on my jacket. Then as I was about to go out the door, he spoke slowly and carefully. Each word had the effect of a gentle slap on my cheek. "You had better reconsider your importances if you are to have a chance of becoming a warrior. Right now, you have the intelligence of a jackass. Your spirit is mush. You do have a great deal of important work to do, but in a different classroom than you now imagine." I'd been staring at the floor. I snapped my head up to face him, but I couldn't look him in the eye. I turned away. "To survive the lessons ahead," he continued, "you're going to need far more energy than ever before. You have to cleanse your body of tension, free your mind of stagnant beliefs, and open your heart to loving kindness. Soc, I'd better explain my time schedule. I want you to understand how busy I am. I'd like to visit you often, but I have so little time." He looked at me with sombre eyes. "You have even less time than you might imagine." "What do you mean?" I gasped. "Never mind that now," he said. "Go on." "Well, I have these goals. I want to be a champion gymnast. I want my team to win the national championships. I want to graduate in good standing, and that means books to read and papers to write. What you seem to be offering me instead is staying up half the night in a gas station listening to, I hope you won't take this as an insult, a very strange man who wants to draw me into his fantasy world. It's crazy." "Yeah," he smiled, "it is crazy." Socrates sat back in his chair and looked down at the floor. My mind rebelled at his helpless old man ploy, but my heart was joined to this robust old eccentric who claimed to be some kind of warrior. I sat back down. Then a story that my grandfather had told me came to mind. There was once a beloved king whose castle was on a high hill overlooking his shire. He was so popular that the nearby townspeople sent him gifts daily, and his birthday celebration was enjoyed throughout the kingdom. The people loved him for his renowned wisdom and fair judgment. One day tragedy struck the town. The water supply was polluted, and every man, woman and child went insane. Only the king, who had a private spring, was spared. Soon after the tragedy, the mad townspeople began speaking of how the king was acting strangely, and how his judgments were poor and his wisdom a sham. Many even went so far as to say that the king had gone crazy. His popularity soon vanished. No longer did the people bring him gifts or celebrate his birthday. The lonely king, high on the hill, had no company at all. One day he decided to leave the hill and pay a visit to the town. It was a warm day, so he drank from the village fountain. That night there was a great celebration. The people rejoiced, for their beloved king had regained his sanity. I realized then that the crazy world that Socrates had referred to was not his world at all, but mine. I stood, ready to leave. "Socrates, you told me to listen to my own body intuition and not depend upon what I read or what people tell me. Why then should I sit quietly and listen to what you tell me?" "A very good question," he answered. "There is an equally good answer. First of all, I speak to you from my own experience. I'm not relating abstract theories I read in a book or heard second-hand from an expert. I am one who truly knows his own body and mind, and therefore knows others as well, besides." He smiled. "How do you know that I'm not your own intuition speaking to you now?" He turned to his desk and picked up some paperwork. I had been dismissed for the evening. My whirling thoughts carried me into the night. I was upset for days afterwards. I felt weak and inadequate around this man, and I was angry about the way he treated me. He constantly seemed to underestimate me. I wasn't a child. Why should I choose to play a jackass sitting in a gas station? I thought, when here, in my domain, I'm admired and respected. I trained harder than ever in gymnastics. My body burned as I flew and fought my way through routine after routine. yet it was somehow less satisfying than before. Every time I learned a new move or received a compliment, I remembered being tossed through the air onto the couch by that old man. How my coach became concerned about me and wanted to know if anything was wrong. I reassured him that everything was fine, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like joking around with the guys on the team anymore. I was just confused. That night I dreamed of death again, but with a difference. A chortling Socrates, decked out in the Grim Reaper's gloomy get-up, pointed a gun at me that went off, shooting out a flag that said bang. I woke up laughing for a change. The next day I found a note in my mailbox. All it said was, "Rooftop Secrets." When Socrates arrived at the station that night, I was already sitting on the steps waiting for him. I'd come early to question the day attendants about Socrates, to find out his real name, maybe even where he lived, but they didn't know anything about him. Who cares anyway, one yawned. He's just some old geezer who likes the night shift. Sock removed his windbreaker. Well, I pounced. Are you finally going to tell me how you got up on the roof? Yes, I am. I think you're ready to hear it, he said seriously. In ancient Japan there existed an elite group of warrior assassins. He said the last word with a hissing sound, making me acutely aware of the darkness lurking outside. My neck started to get that prickly feeling again. These warriors, he continued, were named ninja. The legends and reputation surrounding them were fearful. It was said that they could change themselves into animals. It was even said that they could fly for short distances only. Of course, I agreed. Feeling the door to the dream world blow open with a chill gust, I wondered what he was leading up to when he beckoned me to the garage where he was working on a new Japanese sports car. Got to change the plugs, Socrates said, ducking his head under the shield. Yeah, but what about the rooftop, I urged. I'll get to it in a moment, as soon as I change these plugs. Be patient, what I'm about to tell you is worth waiting for. Believe me. I sat toying with a mallet on the work table. From Socrates' corner I heard, this is very amusing work, if you really pay attention to it. For him it was, perhaps. Suddenly he put down the plugs, ran over to the light switch and flicked it. In a darkness so total that I couldn't even see my hands in front of me, I began to get nervous. I never knew what Socrates would do, and after all that talk about ninja... Sock, where are you? He yelled from direct behind me. I spun around and fell onto the hood of a Chevy. I don't know, I stammered. Absolutely right, he said, turning on the lights. I guess you are getting smarter, he said, with a Cheshire cat grin. I shook my head at his lunacy and perched myself on the Chevy's fender, glancing under the open hood to find its innards missing. Socrates, will you quit clowning and get on with it? As he deftly screwed in the new plugs, unsnapped the distributor cap and examined the rotors, he continued. These ninja were not practitioners of magic. Their secret was the most intense physical and mental training known to man. Socrates, where is all this leading? To see where something leads, it's best to wait until you reach the end, he replied, and continued with the story. The ninja could swim wearing heavy armor. They could climb sheer walls like lizards, using only fingers and toes in tiny cracks. They designed imaginative scaling ropes, dark and nearly invisible, and used clever means of hiding, tricks of distraction, illusion and escape. The ninja were great jumpers. Now we're getting somewhere, I almost rubbed my hands in anticipation. The young warrior, when still a child, would be trained in jumping in the following manner. He was given a corn seed and told to plant it. Just as the stalk was beginning to grow, the young warrior would jump over the small stalk many, many times. Each day the stalk would grow. Each day the child would jump. Soon the stalk was higher than the child's head, but that wouldn't stop him. Finally, if he failed to clear the stalk, he would be given a new seed and would begin over. Eventually there was no stalk that the young ninja could not leap over. Well, then what? What's the secret? I asked, waiting for the final revelation. Socrates paused and took a deep breath. So you see, the young ninja practiced with cornstalks. I practiced with gas stations. Finally, silence filled the room, and then suddenly Sock's musical laughter pealed through the station. He was laughing so hard he had to lean against the Datsun he'd been working on.